So welcome to Washington, but let's rewind to January 9th, 2024. You're happily the head coach of the University of Arizona, and then Nick Saban retires, and all the dominoes start falling. So why this job? Why then?
Yeah, it was tricky. I really had no idea, wasn't expecting it. There was no thought in my mind at that time that I was going to be the head coach of Washington. I was really looking forward to our fourth year at Arizona and what we built there. And then the call came in that Saturday about this job, and I guess it kind of went from Nick Saban retiring to Kalen getting hired to then the job opening. And how could you not say yes? University of Washington has everything to offer, and the opportunity to come into the Big Ten was a huge deal. And I really believed that the programs were going to be about the SEC and the Big Ten, and that's what college football was going to become. And I wanted to be a part of that table. And then to be at a place where just played the national championship with all the history and with the city of Seattle, it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up.
So walk me through like that day and how much time you have to make a life-altering decision.
The first time I got even contacted was Saturday afternoon about 2:30, and I had to make the decision by Sunday morning at 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. I had about a 30-minute conversation on that Saturday afternoon. I was at the office. I was recruiting. I had a team meeting on Friday. I had no inclination that they were going to call. And then talked to Troy Dannon for about 30 minutes on Saturday. And then that was it. Called me back 10 p.m. Saturday night and said, I want to offer you the job. And I want to send a plane tomorrow morning. And I said, well, let's sleep on it. Let me think about this. And he said, I'm going to sleep on it also. And they'll have an MOU in your inbox tomorrow morning. And kind of went back and forth with the agents for about an hour, 2 hours in the morning. And then they got on an airplane. And we signed a contract, and it was really, really hard day. There was a lot of crying in my house. I have all daughters. I was crying more than the other three, than my daughters and my wife. But we were all pretty upset about the situation, but knew that, take emotions aside, that the intellectual decision was to come to Washington, and that's what we chose to do.
So this is a team that played for a national championship last year, but I know you said it's a totally different team. So what did you find when you got here?
Well, I found a totally different team. There was only one returning starter of the 22 that played in the national championship. There was 47 players, I believe, on scholarship when I got here. Out of the 85, there was about another 12 walk-ons, and they had 120 players the year before. So we're about 60 players short from the team that played in the national championship. And then we had to have a brand new staff. I brought 21 people with me. I was talking the other day, I don't know if anyone's brought 21 staff members to a job. And we were able to bring 7 coaches, plus 4 strength coaches, plus our operations department, plus our recruiting department, plus our equipment manager, plus our director of player programs. So everything was brand new. And I found a team that was starving to play, wanted to go out again, were upset by the fact that they didn't win the national championship, and then were upset by the fact that their head coach left. And it was a group that we had to build a culture, build a roster, and really teach them our way.
So what's the biggest challenge when, like day one, first ground floor?
The biggest challenge for sure was the idea of we're going to do it different. But that doesn't mean the way you did it wasn't right. You're coming off of 14-1. You're coming off of 25-3 in the last 2 years. So you have to be careful. I felt like we had to be careful as a coaching staff of not doing something that, well, we didn't do it that way and we won, so why do we have to do it that way? And the challenge is, it really was the starters did it one way, but this is a whole new group. And a lot of these guys were dying for the opportunity to play. They were waiting for this opportunity to prove to their coaches that recruited them that they could do it, and then those coaches are gone. So relationship building has been the challenge of the spring, and teaching brand new schemes on offense, defense, and special teams with no carryover.
So when you have a young team, which you do, how do you see the pros and the cons of that? Because you can mold and go into the system that you want, but also they're young and inexperienced.
Yeah, well, we certainly are young and inexperienced, and we have a high standard here. Number one, because we're Washington, and number two, because that's the way we believe in coaching, with a high standard. But there's going to be mistakes that are going to be made right now. We are completely, I don't use the word rebuilding, but we are retooling. We did reconstruct a roster. There are changes that have been made at every position group. Most players that are going to be starting on offense weren't on the team a year ago, let alone became starters. And then most of our players on defense, most of our coaches weren't even coaching in college football. Our defensive coordinator came from pro football. Our safeties coach came from pro football. So on defense, you've got guys that our assistant D-line coach came from pro football. Our analyst came from pro football. So it's kind of really on defense, learning the game of college ball and getting the team together. On offense, it's bringing a group of individuals together and see if we can make a team.
So I want to ask you about Will Rogers. He was here before you got here. He comes from Mississippi State. What have you seen from him so far? What kind of impact can he have?
Yeah, well, Will was here like 2 weeks before I got here. I think they kind of got that commitment right after the Mississippi State bowl game, or right after the Washington end of the season. I don't know exactly the timing of it. But they brought Will in, and then Will was trying to figure out what just happened.
Right.
And then I was trying to figure out what just happened and what's the quarterback situation going to look like. And I sat down with Will, and within the first few days, I would say, of being here, maybe within a day or two, and just explained to him our vision for the quarterback. And we were able to show him what we did with Josh Rosen. We were able to show him what we did with Jaden DeLaura. We were able to show him what we did with Noah Fafita and what we did with Wilton Spate, Jake Rudock, all of these guys that we've coached in college football and what that looks like, let alone the NFL guys. And what we spoke to him about, me and Coach Doherty, Jimmy Doherty, our quarterback coach, was we see you in that same line of progression. We see that you can have those same type of numbers. You can be that productive if you believe in the system the way those guys did. And you've got to want to believe in what we're teaching you and believe in that system. And then, in turn, we're going to do everything we can to help you be successful.
So tell me a little about his skill set and how you see that in the system you run.
Yeah, well, the first thing is he's a very good decision maker. He's made, I think he has like 1,900 pass attempts in college football, and he's thrown 28 interceptions. So when the first part of the skill set is to be a good decision maker. The second part is to be able to throw with rhythm and timing. And that's kind of been the biggest transition for him, because in the offense that he ran in, it wasn't so much dictated by your footwork. It wasn't so much dictated by taking snaps from under center and the rhythm you have to play with, or even in shotgun, the rhythm you have to play with. It was more, smaller group of plays. You can kind of have an idea of what they were trying to accomplish and find the open receiver. Ours is a little bit more coverage-based. Ours is a little bit more schematically, or, we probably have more plays, more volume, more things that we were asking him to do, but I felt like he was really smart. When I sat and talked to him, he has outstanding penmanship on the board, good indicator of a quarterback that cares. And he's able to talk the game. Dad's a coach. So those are the skill sets that stood out to me. Now, we're challenging him to be able to push the ball down the field, to be willing to take those shots down the field. But he throws a beautiful go ball, and that's where our offense starts.
So you mentioned wanting this job because it's in the Big Ten, and that's where college football is moving at the highest levels. So it's going to be the first year of Washington in the Big Ten. How do you approach that, and from a structural standpoint, program standpoint, travel, food, all of that?
We practice outside in the rain, except for yesterday. We have to be prepared to play in all the elements, number one. We have a road game against Penn State in November. We have road games against Iowa in October. So we don't know, right? We don't know what the weather's going to be like, so we have to be prepared to handle any weather. We have 4 East Coast trips. So we have to prepare to get our sleep habits right, to get the time zones correct. We're going to have to go 2 days ahead of time, just like we did in the NFL. I had an opportunity to coach at the Rams and the Seahawks, so I've been on West Coast teams traveling east. So I've been able to talk from guys over there on how we did it and why we did it. What was important about the meals on Friday, the meals on Saturday, and for us, the meals on Thursday, the meals on Friday, to make sure we handle that properly. We're going to have to deal with the fact that we have the oldest facility in the Big Ten, and it's only 11 years old. So we're in the middle of a big revamping of our facility. We want to try to refresh and look different and make it feel brand new. We're working on all the different aspects of being in the Big Ten. As I've said to our donors, as I've said to our players, you played Michigan once last year. Now you're going to have to play them 6 times. Now, they'll wear different uniforms. One will be a Penn State uniform, maybe an Ohio State uniform, a Wisconsin uniform, but you got to play that brand of football, that type of football. It's probably 6, 7 times next year, and we got to be ready for that.
You have experience in the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the teams that are coming into this league, experience all over the country. How does that help prepare for a move like this?
Well, each year is different. The team's different. So, yes, I had a chance to coach at Michigan and Minnesota, UCLA. So I understand, right, the Pac-12, Arizona, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and what that looks like. But I think in the end, really what it's coming down to is what are our players prepared for? Sure, I could tell them it's going to be loud in the Big House, although we host them here. I could tell them that Iowa at night is a very tough place to play. And we could talk about all those things. But in the end, Coach Spurrier used to always say, if you want to win on the road, bring a good team. So that's really our mantra, and that's what we're going to have to work on over the next couple months.
So I want to talk about your staff because there's a lot of big-name offspring on your staff. We have a Belichick, a Carroll, Del Rio. How did you build this staff, and why is that so important that they have these ties and experiences in the NFL and ties to some of the greatest coaches that have ever coached the game?
We built it 2 ways. Number one, we built our staff initially at Arizona with most of the staff members that are here. And most of them had NFL experience. And that's because I came from the NFL. When I got hired at Arizona, I came from New England. Prior to New England, I was in LA. So I've spent, now exactly half of my career in both places. But prior to Arizona, I had more time in the NFL than I did in college. And I had more experiences with the staff. I knew more people in pro football. And we also believe in becoming a pro and teaching that model. When we left Arizona to come to Washington, we were able to bring a lot of those coaches. So that was first and foremost. Then it became who was going to run our defense. And that was a huge decision because of the fact that I spend so much time on offense and I call the plays on offense. You have to, if you're going to do that, you have to commit. So I thought of all the coaches I've worked with, who was the right fit to run our defense. And Steve Belichick, by far, was the right fit. Now, granted, his dad's Bill, and granted, our offensive coordinator and line coach is Pete Carroll's son, Brennan. But Brennan and I have coached together 6 years now, at 3 different places. So I never gave any thought to, let's make sure we have Pete Carroll's son on our staff in Seattle. I just said, I got to make sure Brennan's on the staff because that's who I've been with so often. With Steve, it was, we wanted to do something different. And if you look back at the best defenses right now in college football, it's guys that have come from the NFL, the coordinators from the NFL, what Michigan did last year. Jim did a great job of Mike McDonald and then Jesse Minter and bringing guys in that were NFL guys. And that's what we wanted to do, the same thing. Danton Lynn at UCLA took the defense up 80 spots. So that was our philosophy. Hire an NFL guy, let him run the defense. Just happens to be that his dad's the greatest coach of all time, which is pretty cool.
And those dads have been to the facility. I joke it's like take your dad to work day. So tell me what that's been like as those greatest coaches have come by.
It kind of started in spring ball with Coach Belichick saying, hey, I'm going to come in town and like to spend 4 or 5 days with you guys and your staff. So that's a dream come true. For so many people, our staff was like in football heaven. We set up an office we have our honorary head coach office that overlooks the water, that has a nice treadmill in it and a locker for these guys, computer set up for them. So Bill came first, and he spent 4 or 5 days here, and boy, we all learned a lot. And then Bill transitioned out, and Jack Del Rio came in. And Jack is great. Jack, I've known for a very long time. I think I talked to him once about a job back in the day, and when Luke was looking for a job, he called me about bringing Luke here, which we were able to do. So he spent 2 or 3 practices with us, and he gave great feedback on what he saw. And then while he was leaving, Coach Carroll made his first appearance, and he tried to be incognito. He tried to just view from the upper deck, but he was spotted. And then I think once he got spotted, he's like, well, it's more fun to be on the field, so the next practice I'll just show up and be on the field. So he was on the field, bebopping around. And then on Saturday, John Lynch came to practice because his son's our defensive graduate assistant. So we were able to just continue to mix and match and bring guys in. And what an awesome experience. Our players heard from all four of the coaches. Team meeting, on the field, in the building. John Lynch talked to him after practice. Pete talked to him after practice. Jack in the meeting room. Coach Belichick in the meeting room. And they heard similar messages, and that's to be a pro. Washington's the place for you.
You've said that you want this to be like the 33rd NFL team. So what does that mean?
It means that we want to surround you with NFL talent. We want to surround you with an NFL mindset. We're never going to bring in a speaker that doesn't know what it takes to get there. You're going to hear about the league constantly. We're not shying away from getting you ready. We want you to have the best combine interviews. We want to teach you how to speak the game of football. You're going to get put on the whiteboard to learn. You're going to know how to speak the game better than anyone else. We're going to open up our facility. The NFL program is better than anyone else does. We're going to give more contact, more ability, opportunity. We're going to treat you like a pro. You're going to dress appropriate. You're going to look appropriate. You're going to get media training so you're prepared. And we're going to do everything we possibly can to get you ready, that the only thing left for you is to use your talent. And that's kind of how we look at it, and that's how we train them.
So Bill Belichick was here for 5 days. What was his message, or what was he like for the coaches even?
Well, I'll tell you the most intimidating ones that I walked in on a Sunday morning. I dropped something off at my office, and he was here. And then I came back 6 hours later on Sunday afternoon, and he was still here reviewing tape. So I realized that I was missing out on 6 hours of good work. But he spoke to our staff about everything of fundamentals. If you think about Coach Belichick, it's about really blocking and tackling. It's about running to the football. It's about doing things right schematically. It's about putting your players in the right position to be successful, and it's about having a competitive stamina that you can outwork anybody. And we believe in that. We're not looking to, rush home, so to speak. We're looking to do the best job for our players. We're looking to do the best job for our university. And what Coach reminded us of is, don't ever forget, talent sets the floor, but character sets the ceiling. And we say that we're going to recruit talent and character, not talented characters.
So you've coached under him. You've coached under Sean McVay. You've coached under Jim Harbaugh. You've coached under a lot of greats in this sport. So who's influenced you the most over your career?
They've all been different. They've all influenced me in a different manner. I've learned from so many of them on how to do things a certain way and then try to really do it my way. That's really the biggest influence, is that Jim Harbaugh is totally different than Pete Carroll, who's totally different than Bill Belichick, who's totally different than Sean McVay. But yet all four of them are elite at their job. So how does that work? And it works because they all stay true to their own character. And that's where I've tried to do the same. That I've tried to be me and be me the best I know how. But on the same token, understand what Sean McVay does offensively and see how we can incorporate that offense into our program. Understand what Bill Belichick does, not just defensively, but leading a team. And how do we incorporate that into our program? Obviously, we're running the Patriots defense and the Rams offense here at Washington. And then on top of it, the joy that Coach Carroll brings to a program, the competitiveness that Coach Carroll brings, competition is everything, right? That'll be his saying forever. And I give him all the credit in the world for keeping that mentality in our program. And then Coach Harbaugh, not only being there year 1 and 2 with him at Michigan and watching it from ground zero on what he built, winning football is a lot of fun. So you don't have to worry about having fun, because winning is fun. And he's done a great job of making sure that I understood, and really what the players understand, of how important it is to compete and to practice hard, and that football is the greatest sport in the world.
So I know you were around all these great head coaches. You had a notebook about like one day as a head coach and taking all these notes. So when you finally got that chance to be a head coach for the first time at Arizona, how prepared were you? Were there surprises? Like, how did you use all of this knowledge to do that for the first time?
Yeah, well, Bill Parcells made a comment one time that said that you have your to-do list every night before you leave, and then you come back and you got 10 more to-dos that you didn't think about the next day. That's true. I've certainly learned that that just when you think you're ready for the next morning, 5 more things happen. But I do believe that over the 20 years, I prepared myself for this job to be the head coach at Arizona and now here. I felt really good about walking into a program and knowing that we were going to accomplish certain things over time if we all stuck to our culture and our values. I learned that football still goes down to blocking, tackling, running the ball, running with the ball, making sure you're physically and mentally tough. And whether I took all those notes or sat in those meetings or surrounded myself with the greatest coaches, which I tried to do at every job change I made, it came down to the fact that be good in football. Be good in football, and that matters.
So you didn't play football. You were a tennis player growing up. And now you're surrounded by all this coaching royalty, and it's like you built this up over the course of your career. But how did you get into football and decide you wanted to coach in the first place?
Yeah, well, it started back in, I guess, when I was 10 or 11 years old. I was ball boying at Bergen Catholic High School because my mom's boyfriend was the head coach there. And I learned from him and how great football was. And then my dad was a college tennis player, though. So I kind of grew up playing tennis and went to IMG or Bolletary at the time. And that was kind of my deal. And that was kind of my world. And then I got applied to college. And I said, I'm going to go be a football coach. And my dad kind of said, well, where are you going to do that at? I said, Florida, where the best coach is, Steve Spurrier. And at that point in time, it was 1994. Florida was on top. He was scoring points. And I showed up there and I thought it'd be easy to get in the building and learned it was not at all. It's not like it is now, where you don't have 4 GAs, you don't have analysts, you don't have student assistants. There was 1 offensive GA, 1 defensive GA, and no student assistants until we broke in and we convinced. I worked high school coach at PK Young High School, and I went to the clinic every year. And while I was doing that, I started leaving notes on Coach Spurrier's window and windshield. And finally, he responded.
So how many notes did you leave on his windshield?
Oh, probably over 400, I think it is. I think it was about a year and a couple months of leaving notes and kind of leaving reasons. It wasn't all long-winded notes. Now you could never get away with that. Now you would be arrested for stalking. But the world was different back in 1994 and 1995, I think it was actually. And finally in 97, I got an opportunity to go into to start working in the football building. And I was there 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. And had 4.5 great years with Coach Spurrier. And he finally let me in the door. And then when he let me in the door, I never left.
So what did you learn from him? I mean, he was such an icon at that time, especially of the sport and, you know, the first of these many great coaches you worked for.
Yeah, learned how to throw the football and how important the passing game is and to be aggressive. You don't have to wait for 3rd down to try to throw the ball past the sticks. And if you want to score touchdowns, you got to throw it in the end zone. And you can't live in the world of being scared. And be aggressive and be attacking. And call your plays. Don't be afraid to be the play caller as the head coach. So I learned all of that. I think that he's the biggest influence on me of all of the coaches, by far. I try to do it like him. I wear a visor because of him. I call the offense because of him. I use some of the verbiage that he used back in the day just in honor of him. And there's no question in my mind that if it wasn't for him, there'd be no way we'd be sitting here today.
The best one-liner. What's your favorite? He's had so many.
My favorite, I guess you can't spell citrus without UT. That was a good one.
You've always had great Tennessee ones. You've over the course of your career, you've talked about all these different influences you've had. You've worked for 7 NFL teams, 6 FBS teams in college football. You moved around a lot over the course of your career. What was that like? And why did you want to have all of those different experiences in different programs?
What was it like for my wife, or what was it like for me? It was a lot on our family to make this commitment. And Amber, from the very beginning, was we're gonna go where football brings us, and we're gonna make that home. And for me and for us, every decision was strictly based on where's the best place to learn. I love to read. I love to be a student. I love to learn. And you have one life. And why pass up an opportunity to work for Bill Belichick if you don't have to? Why pass up an opportunity to work for Sean McVay if you don't have to? And I can go down the list. Why pass up an opportunity to work for Brian Billick, who just won the Super Bowl with the Ravens and then called to hire me away from Houston? I mean, I could have said no numerous times and stayed where I was at and tried to do the best job I could there. But when Mike Shanahan calls you to go be a wide receiver coach at the Denver Broncos and you get to learn from Mike, I don't think it's a good career decision not to say yes. And just like I didn't think it was a good career decision not to say yes to Washington.
So 15 moves in 20 years. Was your wife in charge of like the house flipping? Like, how was that actual logistics of this?
Well, let's be clear. My wife is in charge of everything but football. So she makes every decision about the house flipping, the packing, the selling, the where we go. But we're a great team. She's an incredible mom, and she makes sure that the girls are ready to go. And football is our common thread. We're the happiest when we're all on the field together. The girls are at every single game. And, yeah, it's just one of those deals that we've just really embraced change. I get to go right to work, and she has to meet all the new people. And she has been an incredible trooper along the way.
How do you guys, and you specifically, build those communities, build those relationships fast when you have moved around a lot? I mean, I'm sure you got like a blueprint of how to build relationships and connect with people. Yeah,
be fully invested where you're at. That was the hardest thing. You're not telling the truth when you're fully invested of where you are. You just be fully invested on where you are. And then if something happens that changes that doesn't make you not invested in where you were. And that's how we live our lives. We show up to Seattle on the very first day we were here, or I was here, January 16th. She came with me, of course. And we are now Washingtonians. We are now invested in the University of Washington. And every single thing we do, every decision we make is all about Washington and all about Seattle and all about the Huskies.
For you and what you did at Arizona, you inherited a team that was winless, and you needed to build from the very bottom. How do you take what you learned there and the way that you were able to leave that program 10 wins and reaching all sorts of benchmarks into what you need to build at Washington, which does have a totally new team, but they did just play for a national championship?
Yeah, it's a great challenge. It's a totally different challenge, obviously. But on the same token, it's still about the players. It's still about the scheme. It's still about the people. And it's not about what you did last year. And that's our message. And it was good to have Coach Belichick remind him of that as well, that no one cares what you did last year. It's about what you're going to do next year. And each year is its own year, especially now with the transfer portal, especially now with NIL, especially now with the way the comings and goings of college athletics. How could it matter what you did a year ago when all that matters right now is the 85 players you have on your scholarship, your roster, and your 110 total players? And we're going to try to make them the best team we can.
So you didn't have those types of connections when you were breaking into football that your team has now, that you have now. Why is it important to stress those?
Yeah, I think when I did it, it was so unique and rare to be able to break in the way I broke in. I'm not sure that can be done again or replicated. So many things had to hit. But I want to make it easy on my guys if they can. I want to give them the best chance possible to be successful. That's why I coach. So granted, there was some challenges of being a non-player and not having a tie-in and not having a last name of a coach and any of those things that maybe is a opportunity for others. But in the end, be good at your job. Give them an opportunity to be successful and teach them. And that's why I picked college football over pro football, to be able to watch kids develop, watch them grow, and any chance that we have to help them be more successful because of opportunity and connections, we're going to do it.